The internet used to be thought of as a technological wonder for early adapters with higher skills and better equipment. More recently, we've come to think of it as an essential tool for everybody, and even more so during the pandemic. That's part of the reason for the emergency benefit recently approved by federal regulators that provides people in need some help with the cost of broadband connections and even computers. To tell us about the emergency broadband benefit is the City of Boston's Director of Broadband and Cable, Mike Lynch. Thank you very much for being with us, Mike.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
Mike, I want to talk about the context here because I guess it's a political contest because there is a different mindset now, it seems, in Washington about internet access.
Yes, there certainly is, and thanks for bringing it up. We went through years of an administration that believed in business and didn't really believe in helping people who had needs. And at the FCC, that was reflected, I believe, in not addressing an issue called digital equity. Digital equity is being on par with everybody else in terms of being online and being able to access tools online to live, to learn, even to play. I think COVID over the last year has changed all that. And I think a response from the Biden administration so far has been absolutely fabulous. All of a sudden, digital equity, that ability to getting online, having the tools, a laptop or tablet, whatever it is to get online, having help getting you online, all of these things are now viable for everyone. And that's really why we're talking today.
Well, before we get into the amount of the benefits involved here, what could this mean potentially for a family? Let's say a family going through the perfect storm here where you've got food insecurity, job insecurity, rent insecurity, kids with remote education, and somebody who's still working has to do it from home.
Yeah, it's an enormous challenge. So we are in May of 2021, and we have spent the last 14 months living in a world of COVID. When that first happened, we scrambled as a city. Other cities did the same thing. We were constantly in touch with them. But I think you have heard the line that we have distributed 70,000 Chromebooks to Boston Public School students. But in addition to that, we also distributed 7,500 tablets and hotspots to make sure that families who weren't connected were able to connect. And we also gave some of those to as many people we could who were in public housing, new immigrants who needed to get some training for ESOL classes. We worked with social service aid. I think we spent $1.5 million just delivering connectivity for those who did not have it in Boston in the last year. And more still needs to be done. I think that's the thing. When I said the change in the FCC, during the Obama administration, there was a fellow by the name of Tom Wheeler. He was the chairman of the FCC. And he's still sort of very big in the business, so to speak, works well with the industry, but works well in terms of the public. And his line has been, it has evolved from a nice to have to a must have. People view it as a utility. So we need to address that because there's nothing about federal law that does.
Well, how would this relief grant work for people, the emergency relief as far as connecting or even getting a laptop?
Yeah, the emergency broadband benefit is something that came out of a federal law that was passed in the fall. And some people may be familiar with something called the Lifeline program, which was a program that aided you with your phone in your kitchen or a small cell phone. It gave you $20 a month to help pay for that phone. It's been around for years, and it's actually paid for with a small fee, a support fee that's on everyone's phone bill. The emergency broadband benefit expands on that phone aid program and makes it a lifeline program just for broadband. So what you do, and I think, Chris, you have some descriptive information to help with this, but the benefit will provide $50 a month to someone who is in need to connect to broadband service. They'll also give you $100 towards a laptop or a desktop computer or a tablet, whatever you might need to get connected. This is a huge benefit. I mean, there are income eligibilities just like there are for the Lifeline program, but it's a tremendous benefit for the public, and it's the first time it's ever happened.
So if people want to follow up on that when it becomes available later this month, what should they be doing?
Well, I think the easiest thing to do, there's probably 3 ways to apply for service. One thing is to go to whomever you currently maybe get your phone service from. and say, hey, I'd like this broadband service. I'd like to get, a small tablet and be able to get online. How do I do that? And that provider will help you. When I say provider, I'm talking people like Verizon, AT&T, TracFone, and there are secondary providers too, Bounce, a few others around that will do it. And also, if you want connectivity in your home instead of just on your phone, you can talk to Comcast and see, or Verizon Fios, and see if you can get that service in your home using emergency broadband benefit. The provider should be able to help you get connected, or you can go online. I think they have a URL for it. It's getemergencybroadband.org. And there's also some mail information, which I think you'd be able to put up a slide for, in a phone number, 833-511-0311. Chris, you're helping us today get out this information to the public. It's a first time, so it really needs a little bit of a push because it hasn't been around before, so nobody really knows how to get connected yet.
Yeah, and even just $50 a month, that can be a lot of money for a lot of people. But I want to ask you about the city's efforts on digital equity, because this didn't just start this year, even though Acting Mayor Kim Janey has recently started a new round of applications. But explain the importance of that digital equity fund, because this isn't about just plugging in and having the equipment. This is about knowing how to capitalize on it, isn't it?
It absolutely is. So in a city like Boston, we're fortunate. Many communities do not have what we have, and that is a lot of providers who can get you connected, get you online. Cable broadband providers include Comcast, RCN, and Verizon Fios. Wireless providers exist all over the place. You have AT&T, you have Verizon, you have the old Sprint, and you have a new one called Starry. So we have plenty of ability to get connected. The challenge that comes in our city is affordability. Many cannot afford that connection. And that's where we've been that's what we as a city have been trying to address for the last year by sending out those tablets I talked about. And currently the city is spending, I think it's $1.5 million through two programs, the Boston Public Schools and a digital equity program called Tech Goes Home, to deliver that connectivity to homes. This isn't the EBB federal program that we're talking about. This is a homegrown City of Boston funded program to give households in need the connectivity they need for either their children or their seniors who are isolated. And we can help out with that, but we're directly reaching out through many agencies within the City of Boston. If people are in public housing and want to get connected, they should talk to the advocate or the housing manager in their building, and they can help find a way to make this solution happen. Right now, the city is delivering that connectivity to families in need for a year. We'll see what happens in another year, but right now they're willing to pay for it for a year.
Well, there are a number of community agencies in Boston that have been working on digital equity, even if they didn't call it that, or maybe they thought of it as closing the digital divide. There was one program the city funded a few years ago, at least at the Castle Square Tenants Development, with the Tenants Association, was teaching young people how to work on computers. What was the importance of what was going on with something like that?
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought it up. So that was the beginning of this year's, that was the first round of what we now call the Digital Equity Fund. And it was the first sort of test pilot. But Boston is an older city, and the ability to get our buildings and our community centers wired or connected is a bit of a challenge, certainly for the people who are managing these programs or managing these buildings. So this Digital Equity Fund was made available for kind of like smaller projects, like if you need to if you want to have wireless connectivity in your community center, your senior room, your rec room, whatever it may be. This program was designed to provide that resource, that help, because you're going to need a little $5,000 to $25,000 lift maybe to help with that. So the first program we did with Castle Square was, I believe, 2 years ago. It worked very well. We spent the last year just scrambling in response to COVID. But now we've been able to sort of pull our head up again, and we had some funding available, both through the department I work in, the IT department for the city. It's available through the city budget. We had about, I think it was about $100,000 available. Some of the providers who provide services in Boston, like Verizon, who is a Fios provider, have contributed to this fund. That's the origin of the funding. So what we're doing was we took that 100,000 and the city's elderly department program that's now called Age Strong contributed another 150,000. So we're giving away $250,000 this month to, I'm not sure how many agencies, because they're going to apply for grants between $5,000 and $30,000. But I do know that 100 agencies have applied for those funds. So there is definitely demand and need, and we hope to meet as much of it as we can.
What I noticed with the clip about the Castle Square Tenants Association is that they were training young people to handle computers and even just to feel confident about technology. Isn't that an important thing too?
Absolutely, it is. And as you know, younger folks are adaptable to it. The challenge is for older people. And Chris, I'm not talking about you and I'm not talking about me. But, but we know many people who are reluctant to become engaged. And particularly during COVID, we have recognized that this is a huge problem for the city. The Boston Housing Authority also recognizes that. We're doing everything we can to address it. Because you talked about what is digital equity. In Boston, we sometimes refer to it as a three-legged stool, right? It's the connection, the ability to get online. It's the device, whatever the computer is that, or phone, smartphone, or whatever it is that you use to get online. But it's also the assistance, the help. Everybody needs, particularly if you're like in the, let's say, plus 65 age group, you're going to need a little help getting online. Somebody has to walk you through it. It's a lot easier today than it was 10 years ago. But if you've never done it before, someone's going to have to tell you what the cable modem is, how to plug it in, how to connect that cable modem to your computer, or how to connect that hotspot to your computer and get you up and running. During COVID, it's been a huge challenge because with seniors, isolated seniors, there's been no ability to face-to-face help with that education component. We're hoping now as things lighten up on our COVID restrictions, folks will be able to engage face-to-face and understand this stuff. It's the challenge of getting somebody connected in their apartment during COVID has been enormous, particularly for seniors. They don't want somebody coming into their apartment during these difficult times. I'm hoping as things open up this spring, particularly with programs like the emergency broadband effort and the funding we are giving to some of the social service agencies in the city, I'm hoping that barrier will break down and seniors who want to be connected will be able to let somebody either into their home or join a workshop in their building and learn how to get connected and achieve this benefit.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to explore that and tell us about all the potential.
Happy to do so, Chris. Hope to see you soon.
Good to see you again. That was Mike Lynch from the city's Office of Broadband and Cable. We'll have more news in just a moment.